So I have spent £500,000 profitably in Meta Ads Manager for higher ticket services, whether that be high ticket coaching, agency services, consulting. And essentially what I want to do for you today is show you how I've been able to do that. Now look, I'm not going to go into how to create ads and the strategy and the formula and everything like that, because I've got videos on my page that show you how to do that. The biggest lever that I've been able to pull that's allowed me to profitably run ads on Meta is very simply understanding my numbers. So in this video, I'm going to tell you and break down for you what metrics you need to be tracking for your ads to understand how to make your ads profitable and how to fix them. So there's a few things. Now, it doesn't matter what type of ad campaign that you're running, right? So if you watch any of my videos on my page, you'll see that for most coaches, consultants who are a bit earlier on, maybe below 10K a month, like I prefer my beaker approach where you're sending people and driving people through your Instagram page. Then when you're a bit more established, you've got your messaging dialed in, then you can do ads directly to book a call. But no matter which strategy you do, these metrics are super important. If you can understand this, you will never struggle to properly run ads. So let's break it down. So the first thing that's important, no matter which type of campaign you run, is opt-in percent. So opt-in percent. So when you're running an ad, you're asking people to take an action. And in exchange for that action, you're getting their some form of contact information, right? So for example, if you're sending people to follow you on Instagram, you're telling them in the ad, come on my page, follow me. In exchange, I'll give you valuable content, as an example. Now, your opt-in percent is what percent of people that click on the ad actually take that action. Now, on the low end, you want your opt-in percentage to be at least 20%. Now, if you want a results tracker for your ads that in terms of how I actually do this practically, just click on my Instagram in the link below and message me tracker. I'll send something over to you. But your opt-in percent should be at least 20%. Now, if your opt-in percentage is below this, what it means is that one, people don't see the reason to opt in. They don't see enough value in them doing it. And two, it means there's possibly a disconnect from your advert and to the page that you're sending them to. And if this is low or below 20%, your ads are just going to become more expensive. It's going to be harder to become profitable because this is the first stage of your flow, of your customer journey. So opt-in percent is really important. So make it really, really clear for people to understand the value that they're going to get in their life from opting in. So that's the first thing. So this is the first metric that I track, which I think is important because for me, what it tells me is, does my ad make sense? Is it clear? Do people see the benefit in it? And not only does my ad make sense, but does the page that I'm sending to them to make sense? That's the first metric, super important. Now, you might be thinking, well, hang on a second. On the ads manager, when I'm running my ads, I can see CPM, click-through rate, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, that stuff doesn't really matter. At the moment, for my business, we're spending £20,000 a month on advertising. I don't look at cost per 1,000 views, which is CPM. I don't look at click-through rate, which is CTR. These are the things I'm looking at. So the next metric I'm looking at, which is arguably the most important, is cost per booked call. So how much do you have to spend on an advert before somebody books in a discovery call with you? Absolutely vital. Now, what your cost per booked call should be. How do you know what am I aiming for? Here's the best way to figure it out. So I want you to take your highest price point and divide that by 2. Then, I'll explain why in a moment, then divide that number by 10. Now, the reason and the thinking behind that is because at the minimum for your ads, you want to make at least a 2x return. At the minimum, you've at least doubled your money. So for you to run profitable ads with a 2x return, you need to understand what that number what's the most amount you can spend to acquire a customer, which is half of your price point. And then, so let's do it practically. So let's say your price point is 5K. So if you want to make at least a 2x return, you can afford to spend 2.5K on your ads to make that profitable and to get a 2x. Then from that, where the 10 comes in, is if you're spending that 2.5K, you want to understand, okay, you think of it this way. Let's imagine you're a crappy salesperson and you're only closing 1 in 10 of your calls. If you close 1 in 10 calls, that means you can afford to pay £250 per call. And if you pay £250 per call, out of 10 calls, you will close 1, which means you will spend 2.5K to get a 5K customer and you'll be 2x in profit. So that is the first thing, cost per booked call. Your cost per booked call needs to be within target. Now, typically for most high ticket coaching, etc., your cost per booked call won't be that high. Like for us, we're targeting coaches, which is a super competitive market. Our cost per booked call is about £115. That is a dodgy five, £115. And, but we're still super profitable. But of course, we're very, very profitable because that is our price point. One of our offers is more than this. So yeah, we're well in target. But the point being, if your cost per booked call is above your target here, what it then means for you is that, again, people don't see the value in booking a call, or or the ad's not bringing in the right type of person, or you've got some glitch on your process and people can't book in. It can be as simple as that. So the way to reduce your cost per booked call is, number one, make better ads, which makes better people click. So really understand that avatar, the messaging, what attracts them, and exactly who you want to attract. Number two, make it actually easy to book in a call. You'd be surprised at how many people have a really complex flow and people can't just simply book in, and they don't realize how much that spikes their cost per booked call. And with that alone, that's going to ensure that this can be in target. Now, this number alone is so important for ads to be profitable, because if this number isn't within your target, you're just never going to be profitable. Now, again, advertising is just a maths equation, right? Because then if you can get this number down, let's say you get this number down to 150 and you close 1 in 10, you spend 1.5 to make 5. And suddenly, instead of 2.5 profit, you're making 3.5. And again, if you can get that down to 50, it just keeps going. You spend 500 to make 5, and then you're at a 10x. Right, so these are the sort of things that I'm looking at when I'm tracking my campaigns. I'm looking at, okay, if this has gone up, how can I reduce that? Because if I reduce that, I can get more calls on my calendar for a lower price point, which means I will be more profitable and I'll make more money, okay? So the next thing I'm looking at is show rate. Now, show rate, what percent of people turn up to these calls? Again, super important, because there's no point spending all this money to book these calls if you don't know how to get them to turn up. So your show rate should be at least 70% from your adverts. Now, if it's below that, it's simple. It means that, number one, people maybe don't see the value in booking in a call. Or number two, people don't see, there's not enough reason for people to turn up. So to explain this to you, in the month of May, our ads were very, very profitable, but they would have been more profitable if we fixed our show rate. Our show rate was about 60%. So I was sitting down with my team and I was like, okay, how can we improve this? Because I was like, with our exact same ad spend, if we increase our show rate by 10, 20%, 10, 20% for us means another 20 calls on the calendar, right? Another 20 calls with our close rate, that means another 4 to 5 closes. Another 4 to 5 closes for us is a lot of money. So that's what we're looking at, and this is how I make ads profitable. And so we looked at it and we were like, okay, what I realized was we had a good reminder sequence. So we had a reminder sequence. Let me just rub this out quickly. Where's my thing? We had a reminder sequence that was contacting people as soon as they booked, to send them the invite, 24 hours before and an hour before. Now, for us, we found that was optimal. But what we were finding was that even though our appointment setter was calling them 24 hours before and talking to them, they didn't really truly know who we were. Yes, we had pre-call assets to send them for them to watch to get them more bought in, but they didn't have enough human interaction. So what I was really thinking and dwelling on was like, they have no reason to turn up because they've not really spoke too much to a human. Yes, they've watched my videos, they know who I am, but no one's really turn up. And so from a psychological standpoint, I was like, if we can give them more of a reason to show up because somebody's expecting them to show up, people don't want to disappoint people or let people down, so they're gonna turn up. So what we did was, instead of just having automations and a call from our dialer, we created WhatsApp chats with the client, the potential client, whoever was closing, whether that be me or one of my team, and my appointment setter. And by doing that, what that did was it put them in a chat with real people who were introducing themselves, making chat with them in between. And so you're not going to suddenly not turn up, because it's like you're letting these people down who have taken time out of their day to speak to you. And so what we found personally from this is our show rate went from 60 to 80 just by making these WhatsApp chats, introducing them, setting the expectations for the call, and saying like, we're looking forward to meeting you, let me know if you've got any questions, etc. And what happened was we had an 80% show rate. It's actually a tiny bit more, it's like 82, but anyway, 80% show rate. But the people that didn't show, we knew they weren't going to show. They cancelled, they rescheduled, or they moved. They moved their call, right? So show rate's super important because all of a sudden with the same ad spend, we had more calls, more sales. Next metric that's important for you for your ads to track, close rate. So what percent of your calls do you convert? You want to convert at least 20%. Simple as that. You want to convert at least 20% of your calls. Now, if you're not converting at least 20%, there's only two things really that can be happening. Number one, you're crap at sales. So you just have to fix your sales. So for example, like for me, I can give you an example of our business. So we had 1 month where we spent X amount of money on ads and our close rate was 10%, which was still profitable, but it wasn't great. However, I then realized quickly that was the bottleneck. And this is the important thing with ads. You've got to track your numbers, understand what your bottleneck is and fix it quick because you're spending money on ads. So it's very easy to then lose that budget, right? So our close rate was 10%. So straight away I went and invested in sales coaching. The next month with the exact same budget, our close rate went to 20%. So all of a sudden, from the same ad spend, we doubled our income the next month, our revenue, simply because we fixed that close rate. So close rate is either you're bad at sales or your ad is not bringing you good people and your messaging isn't clear enough. That's a whole different ballgame. That's a whole different conversation for another day, but that's something also to consider, close rate. Now, the next metric that is important is your cash collected. So this is like a massive part of ads that most people massively overlook. So obviously when you're running ads, every day there's an expense, every day money's going out. So when you're having these calls and you're closing them, you need to collect as much cash upfront as possible to ensure that you can recoup your ad spend and make a profit quicker, right? Because cash flow does become an issue, especially when you start having bigger budgets. Now, obviously, like the game changed. Like for us now, we're spending £20,000 a month, so the game is very different because it's not like if we make one sale, we'll cover all the costs. We've got to make multiple sales in a month to cover our ad spend. Now, when you're at a lower spend, this isn't as big of a problem because when you're spending less, what you'll find is that one sale covers like 2-3 months ad spend and then you're good. But obviously for us, we have to make 3 sales paid in full, no, 4 sales paid in full, no, 3 and a bit sales, anyway, 3 and a bit sales paid in full for us to recoup all of our ad spend. So then the game sort of changes, but cash collected, realistically, you want to collect at least 50% of your price point. So what I mean by that is, let's say for example, you contract from your ads, you sign clients and you sign 4 clients that sign up to 5K packages. So you make 20K in revenue, but you'd want at least 10K of that to be paid up front. That's how you want to look at that. Now, if your cash collected is low, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, your ads aren't good enough and they're attracting broke leads, so you're struggling to get them to pay up front. That's the first thing. Number two, again, your sales isn't good enough and you can't structure it in a way to get people to pay more up front. So that's how you also fix that. Or number three, you don't have good financing options to still be able to collect cash up front. So if you're in the UK, obviously you've got Klarna. If in the US, you've got like Clarity Pay, Afterpay, etc. You've got Split It, which you can also use in the UK, etc. These financing tools allow you to be paid up front and for the client to break it down over the months with the financing company. This is something that's very important for cash flow because as you try to grow your business, if you don't have this in place, well, very simply, you burn through a pot of cash fast. And this then leads to the next point, which ties into this, is lead to sell. This is very important because what people don't consider is, or don't really take into account when they're running their ads, is there is a time frame from how long it takes somebody from when they opt into your ad to actually paying you and putting money in your account. And that also affects your campaigns and how you can run them. So these two are very closely linked together. Because your lead to sale, realistically, you want it to be like, for these types of services, 1 to 2 weeks. So for us, we've tracked it, it's 13 days. That is our average lead to sale. We've had people who have booked in a call and the day after bought. We've had people that have taken them a month, but it averages out to 13 days for us. But for you, you'd want it to be 1 to 2 weeks, realistically, ideally. Now, the reason that's important is because if it's much, much longer than that, so let's say it's a month. Let's say it takes you a month to get somebody to buy from when they opt in. What that then means is that it takes you a month to recoup your money. So you're going to be down in the red before you see the green. For a lot of people can't hack that. They can't handle the pressure of that or the momentum of that. So the way that you close that gap is you make more urgency on the call. You're firmer on your sales calls with one call closes, and if you do 2 call close, you make sure that the follow-up's sooner. And you have incentives. You have incentives for them to go ahead sooner. You make your ad messaging stronger, so it's somebody who's in more pain, so they want to act faster. And all of these things combined can help you. You can also be stronger on follow-up, so when somebody opts in, if they don't book a call, you're on them quicker to get them to book in sooner. You open more slots up on your calendar so people can book in sooner, so they can take the call sooner, so it's fresher in their mind, so you can close them sooner. So all of these little things come together. But these two are important from a cash flow perspective because, again, imagine it's taking you 4 weeks to close someone from the point they opt in to sell, but you're only collecting 10% up front. That's never going to happen. It should never happen, but 10% up front. So then you're waiting a month to make 10% of the sale back, which is going to leave you massively in the red when it comes to your ads. So these are things that are all really important. And so I've gone from spending I've gone from only being able to afford £10 a day on ads to now spending £750 a day on ads. And the only way that I've been able to do that is by understanding my numbers and these numbers and understanding them extremely well. And by understanding these numbers and what they need to be and how to improve these numbers, it's allowed me to scale up that quickly. 2 years ago today, I was in a 9 to 5. 2 years ago today, I was earning £1,500 a month. Now I spend £750 a day. 2 days of ad spend for me was everything I had to my name in a whole month. I've changed that around so quickly because I understand these metrics. And so if you can understand this, if you can break this down, and if you can get your head around these figures and how they work and why they work, you will never have a problem in running ads profitably. But the main issue is for most people is they script around an ad, they post it, they wait and see what happens, they make decisions based on emotions, not on data, and then they cut their campaigns. But if you can understand this, and if you can break it down in the way that I've just explained it to you there, you will never struggle with advertising and you'll always be able to be profitable. Because then what then happens is once you find ads that work, and you've got them running and you've got a flow that works, a customer journey that works, you are just tracking these numbers and going, what do I need to fix? What's behind? Where is the bottleneck? So again, just to give you some more examples to hopefully help you out on this. Like I say, I was tracking my numbers and my show rate was 60%. And I was like, okay, this isn't good enough. We are losing 40% of the calls that we book. We need to close more. So within that next couple of days, that was such a bad click. For the next couple of days, I go and I fix that because that I know will determine sales, revenue, etc. So you fix that. Again, if your cost per booked call is low, like I say, it's not low, but it's more expensive than you'd want it to be, then you look at your ads, you look at your flow, you look if your ads are fatigued. Like there's so many variables to it, but what I've broken down for you today, the main things for you to consider and to take into consideration and to be wary of. But if you can do this, if you can understand this, if you can track this and make decisions based on your data, then you will always succeed. And because of that, the way I've been able to ramp up so quickly is because I understand these numbers and I understand also my cost to acquire a customer, my CPA, which is also in a metric which is important. I can then sort of backwards engineer how much I need to spend to get a customer. So for example, for us, our cost to get a customer through advertising is about £800. Now, again, depends on your price point, it will be lower, it will be higher, etc. Ours is about £800. So if I want 10 customers in a month, it's as simple as doing 10 times 800, and that's my ad spend, 8K. And with that ad spend, I'll get 10 customers. And if I fix my cash collected, I'll easily make a return on that. And if I close my lead to sale date, I'll recoup that investment quicker. But that's how I've been able to scale it up so quickly, is by understanding this. And then as I spend more, then you see other metrics going down. Because as you scale your ads, it will reveal all the inefficiencies in your business. So for us, for example, when we went from 3K a month ad spend to 6K a month ad spend, I started seeing a close rate issue. So I went and fixed that. When I went from 6K a month ad spend to 20K a month ad spend, Then I started seeing a whole different issue in terms of delivery that I was struggling to deal with the volume. So I had to go and fix that. But again, this is the game. You're just playing with numbers. Once you figure out how to run the ads and the campaigns, which again, I've got loads of content on that on my channel in terms of how to record, how to script, etc. The game is, how can you make these numbers make sense? That's essentially it. That's how I've spent £500,000 in ad spend. Again, between my own money and my clients' money over the last couple of years. And yeah, if you can understand that, you'll always be good when it comes to advertising.